So interestingly, we have both of our self-assemblers in this hand, which isn't optimal, of course. It's almost like we've mulliganed to 6, but besides that, our hand's okay. We're going to keep it. We don't have any of our bombs, per se, but we have a 2-drop. Now we have a removal spell. So we'll see how it goes. There's a Glint Nest Crane, but I think we still want to... I think this is a close decision. Actually, I like playing the Crane here. Because we could hit a vehicle off of it. Unfortunately, we whiffed again, so been getting a little bit unlucky off of these Glint Nest Cranes. But so far, it's been working out anyways. So here's a Thriving Rhino. And I think we are going to want to just go ahead and get rid of that now. It is quite a powerful card, and once it becomes a 3/4, it's a lot more difficult to deal with. Now we're just kind of hoping to draw a 4th land, especially with the Longfin Skywhale at the ready to come down. As this game has played out, we're kind of wishing, oh, maybe we should have played the Dune Operative on turn 2, but it's all good. Alright, there's a Voyager. So actually what we can do is we've got a couple of different lines. We can just play Windrake here, or we can play the Operative, and then next turn we're going to have the choice, if we draw a 4th land, and it's an island, we'll have choices, but not really where we want to be overall. So just going to play the Dune Operative. We've got our Crane, so we can block the Voyager with the Crane. So there's not really enough of a reason to play the Windrake here, I don't think. Alright, so the Hunt the Weak is going to get rid of our Operative, and it's going to now allow our opponent to attack in. If we block, it's just chumping, so kind of forced to take this, but now it's going to allow our opponent to get a bunch of energy, so that's pretty unfortunate. And we have a little bit of a decision in terms of if we want to make the Malthus squad into a 4/2. I think we actually do, although it's close. But yeah, I'm gonna put the counter on our Malthus squad. Our opponent's got 2 cards left in hand. Hopefully they aren't good ones. So there's a Pima Outrider. So we're definitely hoping to draw the 5th land here. Unfortunately, that's not it, but it is a Fleetwheel Cruiser, so we can just play Fleetwheel Cruiser here. And I think I like just attacking with everything and attempting to race. We might not be ahead in the race, but we can make it seem like we have a shot to race our opponent. And this is 10 damage coming across, and it looks like our opponent's electing to make this double block here. Unfortunately, Blossoming Defense is going to save the Outrider, and so that was pretty good. We could have actually maybe ordered the servo first there. I wasn't thinking about it quite enough. If we order the servo first, we actually can still kill the servo in that spot, but it looks like it's not going to matter. Smuggler's Copter coming down and Windrake, so hard to see what we're going to do about this. 6 damage comes across now. Our opponent's deck looks pretty impressive. So what we can do is we can We can play a Longfin Skywhale, but yeah, I think we just have to pass now. Unfortunately, Fleetwhale Cruiser is crew 2, so we can't crew it up with the Glintnest Crane. And it looks like our opponent's just going to swing for the fences, essentially, which makes sense. So, yep, there's the attack with everything. And I'm going to block the Copter and a Windrake. Not really a great reason to animate our cruiser here. And now we can just play the self-assembler out there. It does not look very impressive as only a 4/4 that doesn't search for anything in this particular spot. And we don't really have attacks either. So we can block the Windrake, and if our opponent doesn't have anything, we definitely have some live draws. Oh my gosh, Longtusk Cub, wow, that's just absurd. Our opponent has 17 energy right now. That Longtusk Cub is pretty backbreaking, but just going to play Windrake and pass. And this attack with everything is actually just going to be the game. That's just game. So, looking at our sideboard, our opponent's deck does seem a bit better than ours. I will say that, just right off the bat. But that doesn't mean we can't win. Sky Skiff is an option here. I think we might actually want the Sky Skiff because we did see some flyers from our opponent. We can take out this Select for inspection. We may just want the Shrewd Negotiation and hope to mise with it. But our opponent's deck has a pretty good curve, it seems like. Alright, I guess we don't need to do too much, but definitely going to hope for a different game than we saw in game 1. So we are on the play here. Okay, I can get behind this hand. So Windrake can be a reasonable beater, so can the P-Foul, and Malfunction as a removal spell. Malfunction can even deal with our opponent's Smuggler's Copter if our opponent has that card, so it's not like we don't have answers to what our opponent's doing. Our cards aren't quite as great from what we've seen. But in Limited, anyone can win. Any deck can beat another deck. Just depends on the draws and the situation. And actually, Vidalcan Blademaster I don't think is that great of a card overall. It's fine. But so it looks like our opponent does have some cards that aren't that amazing. So we have the option of playing P-Foul or the Freighter. And I actually like just playing the Freighter here. And then we can crew it next turn and really try to apply pressure. And that is going to mean, looks like just taking 2 here. The Blademaster is actually pretty good with Hunt the Weak. It looks like our opponent has missed their 4th land drop. So we can crew our freighter and try to get aggressive. We'll see if our opponent has something here. Perhaps the untap trick. Perhaps, okay, select for inspection. So that's pretty good. That's going to slow us down, and it's also going to allow our opponent to look for land drops if that's what our opponent needs. But we're still in a reasonable spot here. All right, here is Hunt the Week, a card that is pretty good with the Blade Master. So if our opponent attacks for 4, we're almost now behind in the race. And here's a Malthus squad. I think we want to actually cast the Live Fast and see what we draw before doing anything else. And I like getting the freighter into play. The question now is, do we attack with the P-Foul? I don't think we do, actually. I think we pass. And we can block with it, depending, or if our opponent does something, then we won't be able to block with it. But all right, so our opponent's making this attack. Pretty aggressive attack. I think we still are kind of committed to our line, though. All right, we're going to block. Hoping this isn't a blowout. There's a couple cards that do blow us out here. Glimmer of Genius is pretty good. I mean, it's gonna mean that our P-Foul dies, but at the same time, we're saving some damage. So wasn't a great exchange for us, but you got to do what you got to do. Now we can. I think we just want to play our Skywell, and now we can activate our freighter. So I think the race is still pretty close. Next turn we can play both Malfunction and Malthus squad. So it kind of just depends what our opponent found off of that Glimmer of Genius a little bit. And the reason why I'm fine with that play is there's not that many cards that our opponent can play at instant speed that are going to give our opponent a benefit and then also provide prowess. Glimmer of Genius was one of those few cards. And Glimmer of Genius was almost the only card it made sense for our opponent to have in that spot. And now here's a Hunt the Week. So this Blade Master, which I claimed wasn't that great, is now has now become a real threat. But it looks like our opponent's actually just going to pass here. And I think we want to Malfunction the Blade Master now. So let's go ahead and do that, as well as play our Malthus squad. And I like making the servo. Essence Extraction, unfortunately, cannot go to players, which is pretty relevant here. Because our opponent's got 6 cards in hand, so it's quite likely that we're up against a lot of gas right now, and that if we don't finish the game in the next turn or two, that our opponent's going to have enough on the board in order to win. Here's a Pima Outrider. We'll see if this becomes a 4-4 or makes a 1-1. I would expect our opponent to make a 1-1, but it's pretty close. Okay, there's the 1-1. But that is going to mean that we can get rid of the Outrider with an Essence Extraction. So I think we want to crew up our Renegade Freighter here. Unfortunately, we didn't draw a creature, or we didn't draw anything for our turn that's relevant, just a land. But we can crew up our freighter, and I actually kind of like the attack with both creatures here. Because our opponent's probably going to double block, and then we can play our Essence Extraction on the Outrider. So this is a pretty interesting play. We're definitely hoping our opponent doesn't have another Select for Inspection. But if our opponent tries to kill the servo, that's not really that big of a deal. So, yep, here's the double block on the Renegade Freighter. And now we can play Essence Extraction on the Pima Outrider. So now we're going to get in for... We're going to bring our opponent all the way down to 1. So this extra hit with the servo was could be extremely important, depending on what our opponent does here. But we've got a Menace Threat and a 1/1, so it's hard to see what series of plays our opponent is going to have that's going to be enough here. And yep, so, okay. We were able to beat this deck in one game. Maybe we can do it again. Alright, maybe we do want the Select for Inspection after board. Live Fast is a little slow. Sky Skiff, do we want it? Some small decisions to be sure. There's also Shrewd Negotiation, which we could cut. Having seen bounce effects, the negotiation doesn't seem quite as good. Because our opponent can bounce their own creature back to their hand. So I think I'm fine cutting that. It's always sad to cut a card that had so much potential, but sometimes you have to do it. And we are going to keep this. So we've got some cards we can play. Aether Theorist into the Pillar Bug. Not the most exciting start, but still fine. And there's a Cobra. So we now drew the Swamp, so we can play the Thriving Rats if we want to instead of the Theorist. I think I like that play. Because the Thriving Rats can trade with the Cobra, but it is also pretty nice on offense to be able to put counters on it. And it looks like our opponent's offering up the trade, or it seems like is offering up the trade, so fine with making this block. Okay, Blossoming Defenses, that's fine. Don't really mind that exchange. I think we want to just play our most mana efficient card here, which is the Pillar Bug, because next turn we can either play Cruiser or play two 2-drops, or Malfunction, so we have a bunch of options. Our opponent's coming in again. Interesting. Well, I think we do want to block here because the Cobra could be pretty annoying for us. But okay, there's another pump spell. So our opponent had multiple pump effects. I don't think we want to play the Cruiser just yet. So instead, let's go ahead and play the Theorist and the Operative. The Cruiser is a card that can just win us the game, so trading it for the Cobra doesn't seem all that great. Alright, there's a self-assembler. Now I don't think I mind attacking with the operative. We could play the cruiser, but once again, I don't really like that trade all that much. So we can attack with the operative. We'll see if our opponent elects to block with the Cobra or not. Looks like the answer is no. So we don't really have to do anything here if we don't want to. Alright, just going to pass the turn. We've got Rush of Vitality. We can scry if we want to with our Aether Theorist. So I don't really mind our spot. We could cast our Malfunction on the Windrake, but I don't think we're going to die to the Windrake, by itself at least. Alright, so let's take a scry. So select for inspection. I think we do want to bottom that one. And we'll just take a draw. We could scry upkeep, but doesn't really seem necessary. And okay, so now we can cast our self-assembler. Our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. Interesting. I actually don't mind swinging with both creatures. Kind of like it. Alright, let's do it. Put our opponent to the test. What you got? If our opponent elects to kill the Theorist, that's going to mean we aren't going to be able to use the energy for scries, but at the same time, the operative is a pretty solid threat, and it looks like our opponent is going to end up trading the Cobra for the operative, and Appetite for the Unnatural is going to get rid of the self-assembler. Okay, so this is still opening up the door for Fleetwheel Cruiser and also the self-assembler in our hand. Here's a Tiger, but we do have Malfunction to be able to deal with the Tiger. If we want to do that, which we probably do. We probably just want to deal with it right now. I think getting in with the Theorist is fine while we still can, and we can use the energy for scries later on. Alright, here's Ovia. I haven't actually seen this card yet in play, so it does seem quite good to be able to continue churning out 1/1s. So pretty worried about that one. And so for 5 mana, our opponent has the ability to make a 4/4. I think we want to actually we could play our Fleetwheel Cruiser here. For 5 mana, our opponent, can make a 3/3. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and play the Fleetwheel Cruiser. And we'll see if our opponent blocks. It looks like no. So our opponent's going to take the 6. And that is going to shift the life totals. Hopefully we do not die to Ovia. And upkeep, we could scry. I kind of like the upkeep scry here. Although I guess a land isn't that bad. All right, we'll take a draw. And it is a land. So, gonna play the self-assembler here. and make our Fleetwheel Cruiser into a creature. And so, okay, so it looks like our opponent is going to make the 3/3 here, but we can cast Rush of Vitality. So that's going to save our Fleetwheel Cruiser and get in 3 damage. So the land wasn't that bad of a draw that turn, and now we still have 4 energy left, so we can scry if we want to. And we probably are going to want to scry here. And making a 3/3 on this board is a lot worse than making, say, a 4/4. So pretty interesting game here, but here's a Hunt the Weak, so that's going to get rid of our self-assembler. But our Fleetwheel Cruiser is still around. Alright, let's go ahead and scry now. There's a select for inspection. I feel like do we want this card? It's close. It is a spell, which is nice. Alright, I guess we can top it. It's not the best spell by any means in this spot, but it is a cheap one. And so yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and play our P-Foul, and that's gonna be able to allow our Fleetwheel Cruiser to get in there. So the Cruiser is almost going to go all the way, it seems like. And now the P-Foul having flying is super important as well. Alright, Pima Outrider, that's going to be able to clog up the ground. So it looks like we're going to probably want to try to win in the air here. Live Fast. I think we want that card. Gonna top it. And we can cast it right now. So rather than animate our Cruiser, I like actually just getting in there in the air, even though it's going to mean that we can't make our Cruiser a creature here. So it looks like it's going to be a chump block here. So our opponent's going to try to create more of a board presence here with Ovia. This time our opponent only has 2 energy when casting the Long Tusk Cub. And we could cast the Select for Inspection, but let's go ahead and take a scry here. So we want to bottom that. I don't think we want to cast the Select for Inspection, so we'll take the 3. And we could upkeep Scry, but I think we may want this back to block, so let's take a draw, and wow, what a draw it is. Confiscation Coup. So that was quite the draw step. So we can actually just cast that here and take our opponent's Long Tusk Cub, which seems like it could just end the game. Because we can use 2 energy from this And then we're also going to have a long tusk cub. All right, it looks like our opponent's going to respond to make the 6/6, but now we're going to pay the 2 energy and get the cub, and we can use the cub if we want to animate our cruiser. Our opponent's at 4, which is interesting. Yeah, I think I like making the Fleetwheel Cruiser into a creature here, because we can use the select for inspection on our opponent's Ovia if we want to. So gonna make the Fleetwheel Cruiser into a creature and give our P-Foul flying. And now we can just go ahead, cast the select for inspection. And we're going to bottom the island. Oh, it looks like, I guess I misread Ovia. It looks like that does not work as well as I thought. I was thinking that this was an XX equal to the number of creatures in play construct, but it's obviously not. So that's something you learn with the new cards, and it looks like it didn't matter. That was the match. So even with that little misplay, it was fine.